versus the government providing the funding
in
for
the
insurance.
flooding thing.
Right. The one that I'm referring to is it's actually a company with Wells Fargo, natural disaster. So if you're in a flood zone, they'll account for it. They'll provide insurance. Everyone else, it goes straight to FEMA, and
Okay.
the rating is quite a bit different. So
Because FEMA will come in and help out, pay the bill.
yeah.
I didn't know that. Talk to me about an umbrella policy. What is that?
Umbrella policy is basically it starts at $1 million up to about $5 million, and it's additional liability coverage on top of your current policies. So we were talking about liability insurance before, what the state requires, and you go at $25,000 and then up to $100,000. Well, an umbrella policy would give you an excess or additional coverage up to that limit. So
The million or the 5 million?
$1 million umbrella. So if let's say you were in an automobile accident that caused bodily injury, it would be an umbrella policy would be $1 million. So if you were involved in an accident where the limits you had at 100,000, 300,000 were insufficient, and you had medical expenses that exceeded 300,000, 400,000, your umbrella policy would then come into play. I refer back to the other story I mentioned. My client was involved in an accident. He had $100,000. The other party had $100,000 to cover his medical bills, and it just wasn't sufficient, and he was out of luck. Well, if he had had an umbrella policy, he would have been fine because he would have gone up to $1 million instead of stopping at that $100,000.
So the umbrella will cover anything on top of?
An umbrella will cover the same risks that are assumed under your auto or home insurance policy.
Okay.
It's just an additional policy on top.
What about the trampoline at the house thing? Kid falls off, hits their head. How does that one work?
The liability concerns on a homeowner's policy, and every homeowner's policy has a liability policy. And usually it starts at 100,000, 300,000 is pretty normal. But the questions that we ask from our point of view is, do you have a trampoline? And if you do, and it's not fenced behind a 6-foot fence and a locking gate, a lot of companies will refuse coverage. Swimming pools, dogs, those are liability issues. And the reason why they're issues is because they cause a lot of lawsuits.
What else?
As far as the liability?
Yeah, so you asked about a trampoline and dogs. Anything else?
Well, dogs, the type of breed of dogs, the number of dogs.
Really?
And the reason why we ask is the liability side.
In case they bite somebody.
In case they bite somebody, in case they hurt somebody, something, another pet.
So somebody might refuse it. Are there companies that say we'll do it, but it costs you more?
Yeah. Yeah, on the dog side, it's pretty strict. It's across the board generally, as far as if you have certain breeds of dogs, the Rottweilers and the Pit Bulls and those kind of breeds, they just refuse coverage. They won't write the policy. And others, they'll stick at a number of 2 generally. If you have more than 2 dogs, that's just beyond their appetite of risk. So,
I also, just because I've heard other clients tell me this, that they can't get certain insurances, car insurance that is, because they drink alcohol. Right. Tell me about that.
Again, I'll go back to this appetite of risk that a lot of insurance companies have. It's their investment, and they've determined what their appetite of risk is, and alcohol is one of them. And for most companies, it does play a role in discounts.
Okay.
With some companies, or a company, it's an eligibility issue. But it's not just drinking either. You've got age of drivers. If you reach a certain age, as far as 75 or older, you're not eligible for them either. It's beyond their appetite of risk for them as well.
So an older driver, they might turn you down.
Yeah. Yeah, 75 is usually the rate there, and types of cars also will.
So a sports car.
Sports car.
Sure.
May make you ineligible. So it's really each company has its own likes and dislikes and where they feel comfortable.
You know what I think is interesting is in my industry, discrimination is gigantic. We have like redlining. Like if you say you won't loan in a certain neighborhood.
Yeah.
There is no age discrimination. A 90-year-old person could come in and ask for a mortgage and ask for a 30-year term. We can't say, sorry, you're 90, you're going to die before that happens. We can't do that.
Yeah.
So then I hear all of these questions. Do you drink? Do you have a dog? And all these things. And I think, oh, my goodness. Talk about discrimination.
Yeah. It's nice having 30 companies because usually we'll find somebody that'll take whatever the situation may be.
Let's go there. Let's talk about this 30 company thing. And they see the advertisements on TV and talk about this, what you're called with these 30 companies and the benefits and what comes with that.
Well, usually within the insurance industry, you're going to have usually 3 different types of agent. You're going to have a captive agent is what they're calling it.
And you're an agent.
I'm an agent.
So we're talking about people like you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, or a company. So you may be a captive agent within a company, meaning
Captive.
you represent that company.
Mhm.
Usually they're the farmers or State Farm, Farm Bureau. Those are generally your captive agencies. Then you'll have an independent agent, which is what I am,
Okay.
where I represent more than one company.
Okay.
In our situation, we represent about 30 to 40 different companies.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have your direct agent, which you deal directly with them. Progressive is a direct agent. They're also allow independent agents to write from them, but Geico is another direct agent.
Mm-hmm.
Hartford with the AARP program is a direct agent with that as well.
And direct would be you call someone on the phone in Indiana versus normally someone here local.
It's a call center.
It's a call center.
And you work with them, and no one in particular that you work with directly, but
would USAA fall into that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I do that. What's the positives and negatives? And obviously, we're not going to put down anybody for what they're doing, but give me from your point of view the positives and or negatives to these 3.
Well, just flexibility.
In what? Which one?
As I mentioned earlier, we've got all these different rules and regulations. Each company is different, and each company does like and dislike certain things. Some companies are really good at rating youth drivers, and some are really bad at rating youth drivers. When I get a phone call wanting to quote insurance, they'll be with a captive agency and be upset because we usually can save them money, but they'll be upset. And frankly, they're just limited. It has nothing to do with the agent.
2-1 choice.
Yeah. It's not that they wanted to charge you more. It's not that they had something out for you. They just are limited in what they can do. In my situation, I do like my situation where I have a lot of options to help somebody. And I'll just refer to just the companies that I have. If someone were to come into my office and want a quote, I'll see, it's not unusual for me to see a quote a half or a third of what another company that I represent is providing. So it's not that I see it within my own agency. If someone were to come in and want a quote, and I'll get a quote for $500 with company A, and I've got another company that may be a quote of $2,000. Same situation, same thing. They just have different likes and dislikes, and so as far as the flexibility, I see it even in my own office. I don't do one company all the time. If it fits a certain criteria, it's every situation's different. Each driver, each vehicle, each coverage, and that's why I probably have 30, 40 companies, and I probably write about 20, 30 of them a lot. So.
How do insurance companies reward loyalty?
Good question. Not all of them do. There are a few companies out there that do offer a renewal discount.
Okay. Is that annually? Is that
depending on the term?
Okay.
But generally annually. If you renew your policy without an at-fault accident, you'll usually see a discount, and that can accumulate over time.
But you have to make that effort to renew it, or it just automatically does?
Automatically does. So if you renew the policy and you didn't have an accident, an at-fault accident, you'll get a 2% discount on your rate.
Okay.
Year 2, the same thing happens, and now it's a 4% discount. And so it can accumulate. But most companies, frankly, don't. What I found is as a discount for loyalty, ironically enough, I have some companies that the longer you're with a company, the greater their discount will be to get you with them. So even with a company for 10, 15 years, my goodness, their discount to obtain your business will be far greater than one that's just with somebody for a year or two. So because I see on both sides. I see those that are trying to retain the business, and those that are being aggressive in trying to get it. One example that I had was, for the most part, there isn't much of a loyalty reward out there.
Yeah.
And I've got a client, or I had a client, I have an existing client who was with a particular company and frankly loved the company. It was with
So
Hartford.
they had a relationship with
Yeah, was with Hartford. It was with a direct rate, as a direct agent with Hartford, AARP agent. They loved him. They loved the program, the AARP, loved Hartford, but their rates had kept going up. And so they came to us knowing that we were Hartford. We also represent AARP. And as we requoted her, we saved her about half the money and were able to keep her with Hartford and AARP. And that's one thing that people may not realize.
Nor understand. You're going to have to explain that one. So let me just say it back. So I just heard you say she was already with, and we're throwing out names now, Hartford and AARP.
Right.
And she had been with them for a while, but the prices kept going up. She liked their service. She came and talked to you, and you put her back with the same companies at a much greater discount.
We rewrote the policy, which most companies will allow you to do. So if you've been with a certain, because the discount for new business, or excuse me, the rate offered by these companies for a new client are often better than what they're going to offer an existing client.
And why would that be? That seems so unfair.
Aggressive, and a lot of companies will offer a new client discount, which will, tailor off later on. But companies just are usually more aggressive in getting the new client, the new business, rather than retaining the same client.
And so they're assuming, really, for the most part, that you're going to settle in to your insurance. And truth of the matter is, this topic is really out of sight, out of mind. You get your car insurance, and you don't really think much about it afterwards.
Right.
Until something comes up in the mail or a great increase or something.
Right.
And they assume that. And therefore, the rates will just slowly increase or annually jump and hope that you just don't think about it. Is that true?
I think that's pretty accurate. Yeah, for the most part.
For the most part, then they do not reward loyalty.
Generally speaking, there's usually not a retention or a loyalty discount.
Well, and even if they did, it sounds like even if they did reward loyalty, let's say they do give you a discount because you've been there, for 3 or 4 years, or the accidents fall off or whatever. It could be that there's another company out there that's giving much greater discounts.
Yeah. I would say a lot of what we do is rewrites in our office. One thing that we do a lot of is, I call them Band-Aid policies. So if I get a client that's coming here because they're so upset because they just had the rate increase from their current carrier, and it was justified. They had an accident or a ticket that caused the rate to go up. He'll come in and we'll save them some money, and we'll put a plan together. It's more of a Band-Aid policy where in 6 months, when that falls off, we'll find something better.
I see.
And so one recommendation, we've talked about recommendations as far as liability coverages. I would encourage us to increase your liability coverage, but also know your own driving record. A lot of people don't know what their driving record is or what they have. What is generally the case is 3 years. So what will affect your rate with your insurance company is accidents, at-fault accidents, and driving violations within the last 3 years. And so once that hits 3 years, you're a preferred client, and you're going to be somebody who these other companies are going to be aggressive with in getting now.
Let me repeat back. So if I've had an accident or a ticket, I have to wait 3 years.
Before it falls off, once it hits 3 years, it won't impact your rate for the most part. Some companies go back 5 years, but 3 years is critical. Once it hits 3 years old, you're in good shape.
So let's go back to your Band-Aid policy. So somebody comes in and let's do something for 6 months. Is there something at 6 months that could make a difference, or do they have to wait the 3 years?
Depends on when the accident or the ticket occurred. So if I have somebody that has a ticket that's, 2.5 years old,
I see.
I'm not going to set them up on an annual policy. I'll do a 6-month term, knowing that in 6 months, if they can keep clean, we're going to have a much better rate for them with someone else, or possibly with the same company, but it'll be a rewrite situation.
So do you have favorite companies that you work with, or do you truly just could be anything?
I have some companies I have good relationships with, and those are generally formed by just really good claim experience. Most companies, there's so many companies out there. Even our office just has 30, but the things that I generally look at with a company are the financial stability, which is actually kind of a rate that this industry is called the AM Best rating. It's an independent analysis of the financial stability and the financial ability of a company to pay on their claims. So, and it's A++ down to F. And so I'll look at each company and see what their AM Best rating is to make sure they're in a good standing. Look at their history. When were they established? How long they've been in business? And then I go off my claim history. What's been my claim experience with this company? And I have about 20 companies that I'm very comfortable with.
Is it possible for a consumer to check these things out?
Yes. AM Best rating.
You just go to AM Best rating on the internet?
AM Best rating. They may, you can Google it. What AM Best, but at nearly every company, when you learn about, there's always a section about the company you can learn about, and they'll talk about when they were established, and they usually discuss their AM Best rating.
Let me just break again for station identification. You're listening to 1340 AM KTMP, your hometown radio station. And today's show is brought to you by Guild Mortgage Company, closing loans and opening doors since 1960. Let's talk about claims. So obviously we talked about the front end of everything, how much it costs and what we should cover. But then we're in an accident or something happens to our home. What happens and how does the process work, and how do we know up front we're going to truly have a good experience when we really need it?
Let's talk about auto claims.
Okay.
They're both pretty different. So on an auto claim, first and foremost, keep in mind to protect yourself. Whether you know you're at fault for the accident or not, protect yourself. One thing that I've noticed is the initial 30 seconds right after an accident, everyone's quite truthful. They'll admit fault because the adrenaline's going so fast, and they'll say things that sound consoling. About 30 seconds later, they settle down. They start realizing what this could impact their insurance rates. Stories start to change. So with that, if you're involved in an accident, get the cops involved.
Okay.
Call the cops. Call 911. Get an accident report filed by a cop, independent party. That will be that's been a saving grace for many of my clients because actually I've got two situations going on right now. I've got someone that did call the cops, and because of that accident report, like I had mentioned, the fault or the liability of the accident was confirmed among the two drivers at the time of the accident.
Okay.
Right after. I'm sorry, it was my fault. I didn't see you. They get the accident report, the police file, he gets cited. Well, during the claim process, that version changes. And unfortunately, that's fairly common. So his story of admitting fault now changes, and now it becomes he said, she said. And without an accident report, you're in trouble. When it's a he said, she said, and no citations, no violations, no independent observation of the accident, no witnesses, it's a he said, she said, and generally speaking, you're to take care of yourselves. You take care of your car, and you take care of yours. With an accident report, when the police involved, now you have something that's set. You have an analysis by the police officer, and you've got something that'll back you up.
You know, I've talked about this on a couple other shows. There's so many things that we take personal that, you know, why don't people just believe me? I'm an honest guy making an honest living. Why don't they just believe me? That person is such a this and that. And like you're saying is, unfortunately, without something in writing, without something of a third party, especially at the time,
Right.
Bless our hearts for being honest and good, at least we think we are, it doesn't matter.
Right. And on top of that, get the accident report. Look for witnesses. If there's witnesses to the accident, get their information because that'll help just as the same as a police report. Obtain their policy information. Okay, get their contact information. I've had clients that have obtained their policy number but didn't get their contact information. It was difficult to get a claim started. So get their contact information, name and number, and get their policy information, their policy number, the company, and then for me, get a claim started. Call your agent. Get going on it. Whether you're at fault, if you're not at fault, get a claim started with that other company.
So if does that mean you? So if I'm in an accident, do I call you?
Yeah, call the cops.
Okay.
Call me. Yeah, I want to be involved. as an independent agent, you do have a call center, and you've got a claim center that can help you.
Mm-hmm.
For me personally, I like to be involved in the claim process. Generally, we can keep notes on it. We can help call. We can help fuel the fire a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not at fault, we can help on the other side of things. So
you'll coach them through it.
Yeah.
And then you'll make phone calls on the back end of people that you know in those industries to say, hey, by the way, this is coming. Watch for it. I got this. I'm waiting on that. That kind of stuff.
It is, and it is an emotional situation.
Mm-hmm.
And generally speaking, they're not in too many claims. So if they're in a pretty serious accident, generally it's their first one.
Mm.
And so you do want to hold their hand. You want to comfort them, but also make sure they don't do the wrong thing,
mm-hmm.
say the wrong thing. I mean, one thing that every insurance company will tell their client, don't admit fault. Let us deal with that.
Isn't that dishonest, though? What if someone's just saying, but I really was, and I feel dishonest if you're saying just don't say anything.
Don't admit fault. Right.
Don't lie, just don't say anything.
Yeah. Exchange information. Let the insurance companies deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
So the police report, answer all the questions from
Sure.
the police officer.
Sure.
But as far as admitting fault to another company,
mm-hmm.
let the insurance company deal with that.
So let's go to the process where we actually get the check or the repair job. Tell us how that works.
So once the fault is determined,
mm-hmm.
once the liability is confirmed.
And by the way, I guess if we didn't do that right, it could be delayed because you have to get that all figured out.
And the police, yeah, exactly. So if stories change, if versions of the accident change within the drivers, and fault isn't determined
mm-hmm.
or admitted, then it's up waiting for the police report, and that can take 5 to 10 days for the full report. So that can delay it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So once fault is determined, then it's a matter of the insurance company taking care of you,
mm-hmm.
whoever's at fault. And that's a repair or a replacement of your vehicle. And as far as where to take it, generally speaking, they'll have a preferred auto shop.
Mm-hmm.
If that insurance company we're working with has a preferred shop, take it there if you can.
How come?
It's faster. Normally they don't send out an adjuster to look at it and do their own analysis. They'll work directly with the shop. They trust the shop. It'll be faster. And then once it's repaired, they'll work directly with the shop. And if you're not at fault, you should be having a rental car in the meantime. And the car.
If you are at fault, though, you won't.
Unless you could, if you've got, if you're at fault for the accident, you'll need to have rental reimbursement coverage on your policy,
mm-hmm.
which is about $20 a year to have $30 a day for rental car.
Okay.
But if you don't have it, you don't have a car while it's in the shop.
I see it. So really, your job is to be there. I mean, your job is to save money and everything else, but your job is to be there in the tough times.
Absolutely.
Make it as smooth as possible.
Absolutely.
And I'm talking about myself and most, we like to put our head in the sand and say, life's fine. I'm not going to get in an accident. I'm not going to get sick. I'm not going to have a fire. It's all going to be fine. So I'm going to just hope it all works out. But it doesn't always do that.
No, and like I said, we have a number of clients where we deal with a claim almost daily. There's always somebody in an accident or a leaky pipe in a house or something that we're dealing with. And so it is peace of mind. It's to help you sleep at night, but chances are it's going to happen at some time. I know I've hit 3 deer in the last year and a half. So
you have.
I
huh?
have. Yeah. So I've been busy. So it does happen, and
have you ever had a speeding ticket?
Of course. Yes. Yeah.
Really?
I've got a good agent.
Do you?
So
I see. Is the speeding and the deer, is it connected at all?
no, they're separate.
Separate.
They're
So you were going the
separate.
speed limit when the deer popped out?
Of course.
Of course you were.
Of course.
That's wonderful. I'm glad to know that. In case no one figured this out, this is my brother. And also my agent.
Full disclosure.
Yes,
Yeah.
I better make sure that's made aware. And we're in the same building.
Let me go back to the other question
Yeah.
regarding the claims on a house, because this is also important to know. In regarding a claim to a home, what I usually see are water claims, things dealing with leaky pipes, frozen pipes that burst, or something with water. Very initially, do what you can to remediate the problem, meaning if you've got a leaky pipe, get someone over there to shut it off and start drying out your house. First call your agent,
Mm-hmm.
because they'll have restoration companies come in right away and start drying out your house. The longer you wait, the more damage it's going to cause, the more expensive it's going to be, and more likely of mold and other issues that could just get really ugly. So be quick, be fast, get your agent involved, and if it's weekend or whatever, get a restoration company there quickly.
So there's companies out there that do that for obviously the living,
right?
A living, excuse me,
right?
Where they simply call, they come 24 hours a day.
They're on call, yeah,
anytime.
And usually, it's within an hour or two. They'll be at your house, tearing out carpet, putting in fans, taking care of it, because that saves us a lot of money. That water can do a lot of damage really quickly.
What about like sprinklers in your yard that breaks? Is that going to be covered?
That's a tough question.
Floods the house?
That's a tough question because a lot of insurance companies are looking at that differently. Once water hits the dirt, most companies are finding that as an outside source of water. So if it hits dirt, that's dirty water, and they're going to call that a flood claim.
Really?
And a homeowner's insurance generally won't cover that. Now, some companies still do. And so if it's come from a sprinkler side, if it comes from your sprinklers and leaks in, I've had companies still changing, but that is a new conclusion that companies are coming to, that if it hits outside source, if it hits dirt, it's going to be a flood claim. They're not covered on your home. So that's,
especially if most of our water systems outside are coming from irrigation.
Right.
What a technicality, by the way.
Very much so. Very much so.
But someone could get caught. They think they're covered. They think they're fine. Something like that happens. Oh, my house flooded. Come to find out it's a source of your sprinklers versus an inside pipe, and you have a $15,000 bill on you.
Yeah, each company does handle this a little bit differently, but the industry has come up with that conclusion that if that water hits dirt, they may refuse coverage.
By the way, I had that happen to me a few years ago, so that's why I brought that one up.
We've as of this spring, we were covering claims with that just fine, but it's something that's coming and it's new. So
what do you do if someone accidentally drives through your garage wall into your kitchen? What happens?
That would never happen.
That would never happen. Happened to me, by the way.
Of course, it would be covered.
It was covered, actually.
You bet it was covered.
Yeah.
Was it your house and your car that got damaged, or just your house?
The house.
Okay, so that would have been a property damage claim for your car.
For the car.
Yeah, so that was a car claim, an auto insurance claim, and there was property damage coverage, and you caused property damage or someone related to you, and
it's one of those things you can laugh about now, but bless my now 17-year-old driver's heart. He accidentally pushed the gas instead of the brake as he was parking the car in the garage and went into the kitchen. Pushed a few things around in there.
I can relate.
Yes. Oh, really?
I can relate.
Has anything happened to you recently?
Well, I'm related to somebody who was learning how to park in a church parking lot and confused the gas with the... Actually froze.
Were there a lot of cars in this parking lot?
He was the only car at the time.
Okay.
And I guess things came too fast. The curb came, and before you know it, we were high centered on the tree that he just ran over, dangling over the retention wall at the church parking lot. Yes, he's just So you ask, what am I going to do in my 16-year-old? Yeah, that's a big reason why my liability coverage will be going up. So it doesn't take long to understand why 16-year-old drivers are so expensive.
Yep.
There is reason, and but like I said, some companies are better than others, but it is there's a reason why they're so expensive.
How am I going to know when I sit down so I want to go shopping for insurance? I'm thinking about it. I'm going to go. How am I going to know talking to someone on the front end? In other words, hi, I'm looking for insurance. What did it cost? Am I going to be covered on my claims? So that when your son does that, or the sprinklers do or don't do that, or when the wind does this, or the flood does that, what's the best way to do that?
Well, you got to know your coverages. Most people that I talk to that want to quote their insurance, the question is, I always try, where are you currently at? Where do you currently stand? Let's make sure we can compare apples to apples here to make sure we really are saving the money. And generally speaking, people don't know what they have. They'll say, I've got full coverage.
That's what I'm saying. I don't.
I've got full coverage. I've got liability only. And so As you look to get a quote,
Mhm.
it's always good to have your current policy in front of you.
Mhm.
What do I have for bodily injury? What do I have for property damage? Do I have full coverage or not?
Mhm.
If I do, what's my deductible? And so those are things that's because it's critical, and the price is a huge, there's a huge change in price depending on the coverages that you have. So
Mhm.
not only that, but have it in place, but also talk to your agent. Or as you're looking at getting a quote, ask them.
Mhm.
I'm concerned about flood insurance, or know what your concerns are, and so we can look over your policy, see what you do have. Because each policy is a little bit different, but that's why you want to go through it and make sure you know what you have, and go through it with your agent.
So our encouragement from this show, one of them for sure, is going to be, I realize insurance is one of those things that you do and you forget about, but you really ought to look at it, what, once a year? How often should we look at it?
Well, if it's been a while, 2 or 3 years, it's good to get a baseline.
Mm-hmm.
See what's out there in the market today. And as far as who do you call, I wouldn't really necessarily limit anybody from giving you an opportunity to get a quote.
Mm-hmm.
Call the captive agents, call the independent agents, even direct agents.
Mm-hmm.
Get a quote. See what's out there for you in your current situation.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get that baseline of seeing what the market is willing to offer you, start there, and then if you see any changes coming on, as far as things that change your premium, of course, adding drivers, zip codes. If you happen to move,
Mm-hmm.
that zip code is sensitive to your rate.
Why is that?
Risk analysis.
Is that like how far away from a fire station or something like that?
No. For an auto, a Provo zip code of 84060 or 840. 84058 like Orem,
Yeah.
is a whole lot different than Heber 84032.
Because?
Traffic's less, congestion's less.
Oh.
They determine each zip code its own rating and level of risk. So as people move, hey, I just graduated, I'm moving, how my rate went up? Well, that's because your zip code changed, and so they rate zip codes differently.
What if your child goes to college? Do they keep track of that kind of stuff?
Not necessarily. He can stay in the family policy.
Okay. And you would recommend that? So if your child is going to college, when should a child leave mom and dad's policy and go on their own?
If they're not on the household anymore and they have a car in their name, if they're an owner of a vehicle, they're not in the household anymore, they should be on their own.
But what if they're trying to get the cheapest? Is it still cheaper to keep them on mom and dad's?
Of course.
But the honest thing to do is...
Yeah, you should be on your own. If you've got your own car and you're not in the household.
Separate it.
Especially, and we get quotes now where you've got kids that have been on the policy. They've been married for years.
Mm-hmm.
But they still come over because they haven't changed the policy yet.
But no one's checking that, I guess.
They're not looking at it. Agent hasn't looked at it or forgotten to change it. That needs to change. And in all reality, if you're married, you're going to get the best rate anyway. If you're over 25 and single, that's when you hit a nice plateau of a great rate. Or if you're single, or if you're married and over 21, that's going to warrant you the same rate.
They assume when you get married and you're 21, you become more boring. Is that true?
You're more boring. You're going to drive slower. You're not going to drag Maine anymore. Those kind of things. So.
Did you enjoy dragging Maine, by the way?
Of course.
Did you enjoy that?
Of course.
All those years?
Yeah.
Just off last year? You and the kids dragging Maine, it was time, wasn't it?
Right.
It was time to stop.
Yep.
Bless your heart after a few years. I'm going to just stop for one more time. For station identification, you're listening to 1340 AM KTMP, your hometown radio station. And today's show is sponsored by Guild Mortgage Company. Your loan on time, every time. Again, we're at 175 North Main, Heber City, Utah. And our phone number is 435-654-9979. And remember, please email me at tstone@guildmortgage.net your questions. This is our 6th show since we've started, just covering insurance today. By all means, if there's other shows that, by the way, as of tonight, will be on my Facebook page, so that you'll be able to link, or click on a link, and listen to the shows again, or for the first time if you missed it. But today, by all means, if you have questions, email me or call Lon at
435-657-2332. Also located at 175 North Main, Suite 202.
We're a couple doors away from each other. Works pretty good for us. I have to be honest with you, I thoroughly enjoy, obviously, my relationship with my brother, because as people come in and talk to us about their loan, I just say, let's look at some other things while we're at it. Now's the time, and I have them talk to their insurance company and whomever else they want, and I say, I'd put Lon over there at Advance on your list, and I'm telling you, it's 99% of the time people switch over for all the reasons we've talked about today. So I'm a huge advocate. Yes, I'm related to him, but actually I don't. The truth is, when Lon started doing insurance, I did not go with him for about a year and a half. And I asked Lon, I said, Lon, I'm in a small town. I've got some insurance elsewhere. I do not want to create an opportunity or create a negative situation there. And he says, okay, that's a problem. No problem. When I finally did, after about 18 months, is what I said, if you don't mind, I'm going to wait because I just don't want to make a problem. When I finally brought my stuff over, we increased my coverages and saved $1,400 a year. That was my first great savings. So thank you, Lon. Appreciate you doing that.
Thank you for the business relationship and personal relationship too. But that's probably the most often asked question we get in our office is how can you be so cheap?
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's not necessarily just our company, but if I were to convey anything that people may realize, there is a huge discrepancy in price with insurance out there, particularly with home and auto. But there's a reason why you and I get 4 and 5 requests to quote insurance every day.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go home today and I'll have 4 or 5 requests, whether it be radio, TV, or mail, to want to quote my insurance.
Mm-hmm.
There's a huge discrepancy. And so you really need to, I know it's painful, but you really need to educate yourself on what you have and what you could be having.
Mm-hmm.
And you may be great where you're at.
Sure.
And that's what I understand too, is we'd love an opportunity, anybody, quote it out, but you may be reassured that you're in a good place.
Mm-hmm.
And you've had a recent activity, a recent accident or ticket, you could be in a good place. You need to stay where you're at. And that happens too.
Awesome. Well, I have to throw my disclaimer out. Obviously, this is always everyone's favorite part of the show. It sure is mine. Here I go. I always try and do it as fast as I can, see if I can improve my time. Here we go. Guild Mortgage Company, NMLS 3274, Equal Housing Lender, Tom Stone, MLS 257849. The information contained in this training has been prepared and distributed for educational purposes only and do not represent the opinions of Guild Mortgage Company.
Almost.
Not quite. Hopefully next week I can improve on that. Well, again, thanks to Lon Stone with Advance Insurance for showing up. Lon, any final advice or anything that you would leave us with?
Just arm yourself. Protect yourself. Protect yourself against higher rates. Protect yourself against claims. But just take an active approach to your insurance.
This is
Be
one
involved.
place you need to be selfish.
Yeah, be involved. Don't rely by someone else to take care of you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Educate
Great
yourself.
advice.
Yeah.
Great advice. Well, you've been listening to 1340 AM KTMP. Thanks to Lon Stone in Advance. I'm Tom Stone with Guild Mortgage.